Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I will be talking about the evolution of the common comic book collector. Many of these stages you will see in yourself, many of these stages you will see in others. But this is all the natural progression of what a comic book collector goes through, and it is evolution, it is nature, there is no stopping it. The first stage of all comic book collectors is the Pliopithecus. Comic book collectors start on all fours, basically evolving from our rudimentary, basic genetic ancestors. Pliopithecus is the most primitive comic book collector, the most rudimentary, and many would say the happiest comic book collector. Pliopithecus often is thrilled to find an X-Men #1 in a dollar bin. Pliopithecus is happy to have an X-Men 1 in their comic book collection. This species is very content with having a short box of any sort of comics. Many times these books are not bagged and boarded, but Pliopithecus doesn't care. Pliopithecus is reading the comics and is just thrilled to have any comics at all in their collection. You can see the look on his face. He's confused, but he's still content with what he has. Many would say that this is the golden age of collecting. It's the most simple, it's the happiest time of your collecting. You're not concerned with first appearances, you're not concerned with key issues, you're happy with the books you have. Pliopithecus has no idea what's out there. Pliopithecus doesn't really care. He's happy with what he has at hand. Pliopithecus is not poor or broke. Pliopithecus just doesn't know what to buy. He doesn't know where to get the books. He doesn't know what books he should get, and he's fearful of spending money on something that he doesn't understand. A simple time of rudimentary 90s comic book collecting, a simpler time, a happier time, an easier time. Pliopithecus is the lowest comic book collector on the evolutionary chain. The next stage on the evolutionary chain is the Australopithecus. Now, this is a slightly more evolved creature than our previous stage. The Australopithecus now knows what a key comic is and is now collecting Spawn #1. Australopithecus now knows that Spawn #1 is the first appearance and origin of Spawn. He understands that this is a key issue and this is a first appearance issue. So he realizes that he would need to collect this to have the first appearance of Spawn. This is an easily excited species and is willing now to spend $20 to $25 on a single comic book in a high grade. The species now knows the importance of bagging and boarding. The species now usually owns a few short boxes of books, likely bagged and boarded. This species now knows how to use tools, not only the tools of the bags and boards, but now has the danger of using the internet. Sites like Key Collector or watching idiotic YouTubers tell them how to collect or what they should collect. With this rudimentary tools and knowledge, Australopithecus oftentimes gets into trouble, spending money on things that Australopithecus doesn't understand or doesn't actually want, but is still easily excited and happy to have what Australopithecus has. Australopithecus is still impressed by 90s comic book collections, full runs of 90s comic book collections, and Australopithecus plans to buy an X-Men #4 first appearance of Omega Red before the end of the year to get another first appearance that he really wants. The next stage on the evolutionary chain is the Homo habilis. The Homo habilis is a much more advanced species, a creature than the Australopithecus. The Homo habilis now knows what books like Amazing Spider-Man 252 and Incredible Hulk 340 are. Homo habilis knows that these books are not only cool covers, but are often homaged, or they are homage covers of previous books. Homo habilis knows now what Amazing Fantasy 15 is, the first appearance of Spider-Man, and he knows that Amazing Spider-Man 252 is probably the closest thing he will ever get to that. The collector has learned to now stand on his own and he now knows how to obtain rarer comics that he cannot find locally. Homo habilis now knows how to use eBay, now knows how to use Whatnot and Instagram to buy books. Homo habilis is often overpays for things because he doesn't understand. He often buys books for a higher price in a lower condition, but is just happy to have a copy of, for example, Amazing Spider-Man 252. Things are getting pretty serious now for Homo habilis. He now considers himself a true comic book collector. Homo habilis now buys things that other people tell him to do, or other books that he perceives as important in comic book collecting. Homo habilis oftentimes has 6 to 7 short boxes with potentially a half full long box of a run that he's putting together. Homo habilis has now gone to his first comic book show or convention, and he's likely overpaid for something that he does not need or is in a very common book that he could get anywhere. Homo habilis has no idea of print runs. Homo habilis is now starting to understand that there are variations in books, whether that be newsstands or directs, but he doesn't still quite even understand what that means. The next stage in the evolutionary chain is Homo erectus. Homo erectus is a far more advanced species than Homo habilis. Homo erectus now wants a New Mutants number 98 or an Amazing Spider-Man number 300. Homo erectus now understands that there is a link between the movies and comic books. Homo erectus now sees that there is potential money involved in the comic book collecting world. Homo erectus has taken it to the next level. Homo erectus watches many of the Marvel and DC movies, and now wants to own a piece of those characters by buying into a higher value book, specifically a book like New Mutants 98. Homo erectus now knows what slabbing is. Homo erectus knows that there are grading companies like CGC and CBCS, and Homo erectus is considering getting an account and sending books to be graded. Homo erectus now uses many tools to assist him in his comic book collecting. Homo erectus uses key collector, cover price, GPA analysis, multiple tools to determine whether or not Homo erectus is getting a good price for the comic books he's collecting. Homo erectus realizes that he's been burned before by overpaying for books at a convention or a local comic book shop and doesn't want to be burned again, so he consults other sites, other tools to assist him in knowing if he's getting a good price. Homo erectus plans to send books to CGC to increase the value of his comic book collection. Homo erectus realizes there's money to be made in this hobby and is not just satisfied with the just collecting of the comic books. Homo erectus now has an entire closet of comic books, ranging from 90s books to modern books that he bought overpriced from his local comic book shop, to variants of those same books, to some Bronze and Silver Age books. Homo erectus bought a small comic book collection from his HVAC or his maintenance man that comes to his home after telling the man about his extensive comic book collection. After buying this collection from the HVAC maintenance man, Homo erectus now plans to expand his horizons, expand his collection by flipping comics to buy other comics. The next evolution of comic book collectors is Homo neanderthalensis. Homo neanderthal is a very advanced comic book collector at this point. Homo neanderthal now wants a giant size X-Men number 1. Homo neanderthal is no longer satisfied with modern comic book collecting from the 80s and 90s. Homo neanderthal is now moving into the Bronze and Silver Age. Homo neanderthal has now seen the highs and lows of the hobby and has likely overpaid for things or has gotten things for a very low price So he feels like Homo Neanderthal is getting a steal and is basically significantly increasing the value of his collection for getting books at a cheap price. Homo Neanderthal has spent a fortune on buying books at the wrong time, and likely his collection is worth half of what he paid for it. Homo Neanderthal went down the slippery slope of speculation, only to find that many of the books that he was speculating on were complete duds and, as said before, bought at the wrong time. Homo Neanderthal has started selling comic books regularly to buy more comic books. Homo Neanderthal has likely set up at his first comic book show or set up at a local comic book convention to wet his whistle on what it would feel like to be a comic book dealer. He's likely even sold books on his fledgling YouTube channel where he talks about things that he doesn't know or doesn't understand. Homo Neanderthal at this point has an extensive comic book collection with multiple long boxes, too many short boxes to count, but has likely downsized to collecting only the things that he cares about. Homo Neanderthal likely has hundreds of slabs at this point, whether they be first appearances or important key issues, great covers, variants, ranging all the way from the Silver Age to the modern age. Homo Neanderthal has read comic books, specifically books like The Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns, and because he has read those, he feels like he has an understanding of what good comic book writing is and good comic book art is, and then he impresses that on other people to make him sound smart and more important. Homo Neanderthal is so far into the hobby now that there really is no getting out, and is likely going to be buried with the comic books that he has bought over the years. The final evolution of a comic book collector is the Homo sapiens sapien. The Homo sapiens sapien has discovered the Golden Age and has recently bought an Amazing Fantasy 15. The Homo sapiens sapien, if you can see the look on his face, it's a look of happiness, but it's also a look of discontent. Homo sapiens sapien has just spent $30,000 on a comic book and realized that there is no way of getting out of this hobby now. He has a look of satisfaction on his face because he realizes that he now owns a piece of Spider-Man, but does not have the understanding that now Spider-Man now owns a piece of him financially. No 90s books or single-digit X-Men or single-digit Fantastic Four or single-digit Amazing Spider-Man do anything for the Homo sapiens sapien. Homo sapiens sapien is only excited by the Golden Age now, or major Grail key comics. Homo sapiens sapien often buys good girl art from the 40s and 50s and is obsessed with EC horror that is extremely difficult to come by. Homo sapiens sapien refuses to buy anything low grade. Homo sapiens sapien realizes that he has hundreds of thousands of dollars of comic books now that are literally pieces of paper that little Jimmy from the 40s and 50s threw into the corner and could have cared less about. Homo sapiens sapien has reached a point of no return, but he is the most evolved comic book collector. Guys, at what stage are you in the evolution of the comic book collector? Let me know. If at any point in time you like this video, give the thumbs up, and if you like this video, subscribe for more. Take care.